Chris, what is our fourth main topic today?
This is from Grogu Shirt. Hey, John and team. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Boba Fett was a terrible series. It had moments, but not enough of them. Not enough to overcome the crap ones that kept piling up. When you stop and think about it, even the episode with Luke was complete nonsense. Anyway, if you're Disney, what are the main lessons you need to learn from Boba Fett's failure?
All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And I mean, look, the first thing you have to understand and kind of acknowledge is that Boba Fett's failure, well, that depends on your point of view, as Obi-Wan would say, from a certain point of view. There are people who quite enjoyed the series. And listen, there are parts of the series that I enjoyed. So I'm not willing to just label the series a failure overall, because to me there were a number of episodes. You know, Ray would come over every Tuesday night and Ryan would come, we'd sit down, we watch it, and there were a number of the episodes that at the end of the episode I go, you know what, that episode wasn't bad. And I even, with all the ridiculous stuff in the final episode, there was also some stuff in there I quite liked. So I'm not going to be one to label it as a failure myself, but there were absolutely mistakes made. I don't think there's any, I think even the biggest fan of the series will acknowledge there were mistakes made. And I think if you're Lucasfilm, you need to, at the end of every series, you need to take a step back and say, what are the lessons we need to take from this that we apply and move forward with? You know, some people, you know, if there's ever pictures of me driving in my car, sometimes you'll see on my display that I'm listening to the John Campea Show podcast. And I have people write in and say, are you listening to your own podcast? I'm like, you're ignorant fool if you don't. If you don't listen and watch your own work to examine what you do, you're never going to get better at what you do. So yes, I watch every episode of the John Campea Show. I listen to every episode of the John Campea Show podcast, because if I don't, I won't pick up on the bad habits that I form. Some I decide to keep because I just like it. Fuck it. But I mean, but you know, you never get better. And I think Lucasfilm has to do the same thing. So I think it's a really interesting question you asked. It's like, what are the lessons that they need to take away from this? So I want to propose 5 lessons that I think Lucasfilm, even though there was some success with Boba Fett, but 5 lessons I believe that they need to take away from Boba Fett. So put on your caps. We're going to go into the Campea classroom here for a second. I'm going to propose, and then I want to bring up the 5 lessons. I want to hear from you guys about what you think about it. The first lesson I think they need to take away from the Book of Boba Fett is this. Fan service only works if the proper story is built around it. Fan service only works if you build the proper story around it. Fan service is neither a good or a bad thing. It's like any other tool. A joke isn't a good or a bad thing. If you use a joke in the right way at the right time, it enhances a scene. If you drop the wrong joke at the wrong time, it ruins a scene. It all depends on how you use it. You look at Spider-Man No Way Home. Toby and Andrew is fan service. Don't deny it. It's fan service. But they built their story in such a way in Spider-Man No Way Home that fan service was integrated and served the story. And because it did, it worked. Cap holding Mjolnir is fan service. Well, there's a lot in Endgame that's fan service. But it's actually picked up on something they hinted back in Age of Ultron, and then it created something in the whole thing and actually became a part of the story about the culmination of Captain America was truly worthy. They made it a part of the story. When you look at Boba Fett, there was fan service without purpose or reason, right? We got to see a Rancor. Cool. But it didn't make sense. Rob pointed out so accurately, oh, and he got to ride the Rancor into battle at the end. Why the hell, if he was going all the way back to his palace, would he not get his freaking gunship? Remember when he took out that entire biker gang in like 2 seconds? Why wouldn't he get that instead of the Rancor? It didn't make sense narratively. I'll even say this, and people are not going to like that I'm saying this. By the end of it, Cad Bane was pointless. I loved Cad Bane popping up. I loved, like, we need him like, oh, and he sounded menacing with that damn hat and everything too. But by the end, you realized he was just there so he could be there. If you wanted to have him, introduce him in episode 2, start to lay the groundwork of the tension, background story, and purpose of, and the dynamic between Boba Fett and Cad Bane. If that's going to be your ultimate big end fight, don't go, walking around in pajamas, hanging out with Tuskens. La, 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 la. Second last episode. Oh, here's Cad Bane. Oh, last episode. Now we're going to fight. At the end of the day, Cad Bane was empty fan service because they didn't do anything with him. Ahsoka. You know I really like Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. I loved her turn as Ahsoka in Mandalorian. But her popping up in this was pointless. Wait a minute. Why is she on that planet with Luke? Last time we heard from her, she had no desire that this thing should be trained. Blah, blah, blah. If you just knew where Luke was, instead of telling Mandalorian in season 2 of Mando about, you must try to seek out another Jedi somewhere. Wait a minute. I forgot. I know this Jedi. How about I just take you to him and you can drop the kid off? And then when her conversation with Luke was done, she says, okay, bye, I'm leaving. They didn't build a story purpose for her to be there. Even Luke himself, at the end of the day, other than Luke is the least egregious of this because at least Luke had to present Grogu with the dilemma. Do you take the shirt, the representation of your past and the things you're attached to, or do you take the lightsaber, the representation of the things you can be? So at least there was a little bit of that. But there was so many elements of fan service in there that had no point and no purpose. And that's an issue. And I think that is a lesson. Not that Lucasfilm shouldn't use fan service moving forward. Fan service can be used great. I think Mandalorian showed you can do fan service great. But they need to make sure if we're going to use fan service, it's got story behind it. All right. Let's go into what I think is the second lesson they need to learn. And that is this. Bad pacing kills the telling of a story. Bad pacing doesn't kill a story, but bad pacing kills the telling of a story. By the end of the book of Boba Fett, we realized the whole reason we spent 3 episodes of watching Boba Fett walking around with the Tuskens was so that when Cad Bane says, we're the actual ones who killed your Tuskens, ha ha ha. 3 episodes was all for that one moment. A skilled storyteller could have gotten us as the audience to understand the emotional attachment that Boba Fett had to the Tusken Raiders in 1 episode. I go back to X-Men 2, Rob. You remember that? There's a scene where you may have had some connection to that. There was a scene in that movie that I always go back to when I talk about pacing, where Bobby what's the character's not Firestarter? I'm forgetting the name of Bobby's buddy. Pyro, thank you. Pyro and Kitty, I think it was Kitty Pryde, wasn't it? No, it wasn't Kitty Pryde. It was a Rogue. They go to Bobby's family's house. And as they go in, Pyro sees a family portrait of Bobby and his parents, and they look happy. And with no dialogue, just a quick shot of the portrait, then a shot on Pyro's face, I knew Pyro's entire backstory. This is a guy who never had a family, who never had the support and love of parents or siblings and whatever. And he is feeling envious. All that in 3 seconds of a quick shot because a skilled storyteller told that part of a story, right? The fact that they used up 3 episodes of this show to simply make the point, hey, he was really attached to these people and they were taken from him. That killed the storytelling pace. It meant I was kind of off this show before it even really got rolling. Bad pacing skills or bad pacing kills the storytelling, and I think they need to take that lesson moving forward. When they go into Obi-Wan, I don't want 3 episodes of Obi-Wan just wrestling with, it's very hard living on Tatooine. I don't need 3 episodes of that. Give me half an episode that kind of makes that point and then move on. All right. The third lesson that I think that Lucasfilm needs to take away from the Book of Boba Fett is this. Lesson number 3. Understand your characters if you want your audience to understand them. They did not understand Boba Fett. Because by the end of this series, we had no idea what was really his motivations, what made him do this sort of thing. Is he even intelligent? Does he even have any idea what he's doing? Because at first it's like, I just don't want to work for idiots anymore. Then it's, these are my people, I must protect them. With, by the way, nothing happened in the show that ever created a bond between him and his people. And only to end up in the final scene, you know what, we're not cut out for this. They had no idea who their Boba Fett was. They could have made their Boba Fett anything they wanted it to be. But what became clear is that they didn't have any idea who they wanted Boba Fett to be. And if you don't have any idea who your main character is supposed to be, how are we as the audience supposed to get on board with it and know who your character is supposed to be? That is really important. All right. I think lesson number 4 that Lucas needs to take away from the Book of Boba Fett is this. If I can finally get it here. There it is. It's this. Stay on target. Don't make your main character a guest star in their own show. And I'm not just talking about the fact that we went a couple episodes without seeing Boba Fett. What I'm talking about is this show never once felt like it was staying on target. I don't mind flashbacks in shows. Flashbacks in movies and shows can be very effective. But it just kind of felt like the story of the Book of Boba Fett was jumping all over the frickin' place all the time. Oh, good, we're getting to know Flashdance Girl. We're getting to know her. We're getting to know... oh, wait a minute. Now we're talking about taming the Tusken dog. That wasn't... like, when you go back to the old Highlander TV series, when they did flashbacks, it was always directly connected to what was going on with... it wasn't Connor McLeod, it was...
Duncan.
Whatever was going on with Duncan McLeod in the present time, it was always... they stayed on target. This show, the cuts between the time periods was disconnected. Then when they suddenly cut to Mando, it was like without warning or anything, and just the show lacked any focus. So that by the time we got to the end, we're like, I'm not even sure what this show's about. And that's a problem. So I think the 4th lesson they need to take away from this is stay on target. Figure out what your direction is and stay on it. The last lesson I'm going to say I think they need to take away from the Book of Boba Fett, and the success or failure, however you want to term it, they had was this. When you're writing this stuff, ask why your characters are making the choices they're making, because the audience certainly will ask those questions. Throughout the Book of Boba Fett, we as the audience were constantly, why did Boba Fett just do that? Why did that character just say that? Why did Boba Fett, knowing that the tentacles of the Sarlacc can reach out and grab him, flying his ship right over? Why, when Boba Fett knows he got out of the Sarlacc pit with his armor on, why is he looking in the belly of the Sarlacc pit? Why is Boba Fett hiring a bunch of teenage kids who we have never so much as seen throw a single punch and saying, you're going to be my muscle? Why is he doing that? Why, when he flew back to the palace, did he decide to ride back on a Rancor instead of bringing back his full battleship to wipe everybody out? When we as the audience are constantly asking the questions, why did this character just decide to do this? It shows that you as the writers never bothered to stop to ask the question, why is he doing this? And again, this kind of goes back to point 4 in that it takes away from the focus of the show and we don't know which way we're going. Now, again, there are things that I quite enjoyed about the Book of Boba Fett, but if you're asking me, what are the lessons that Lucasfilm needs to learn and then apply as they move forward, in Obi-Wan, in Ahsoka, in the Acolyte, in whatever else they're going to do moving forward, in Andor. Number 1, fan service only works if you write the proper story around it to support it. Number 2, bad pacing kills the telling of the story. Number 3, understand your characters if you want your audience to understand them. Lesson 4, stay on target. And lesson 5, ask why your characters are making the choices they're making, because if you don't, the audience will, and it's pretty dissatisfying. Hey guys, we want to take just a second and thank the sponsor of today's video, Manscaped. Now listen guys, you know, it is not the 1970s anymore. It is not cool for a man just to let his balls look like the deepest, darkest jungles anymore. You want to keep them trimmed. You want to keep them tidy. And there's nothing I entrust more to the well-being of Dr. Jack Hammer and the amazing Fantastical than the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0. This thing trims like a finely tuned machine for my finely tuned area. But wait, there's more. Because today I'm excited to let you guys know about Manscaped launching their new Ultra Premium Collection. Believe it or not, it's not for your not-so-private parts. I am talking about a leveled-up overall hygiene routine with your favorite manly scents. Now, in the special Ultra Premium Collection, we're talking about premium Manscaped deodorant. Don't just take care of your balls. Got to take care of them armpits too, guys. A hydrating body spray. Listen, you got tattoos or issues with any dry skin? Well, this spray-on lotion lotion is designed to keep your skin feeling moisturized, smooth, and dudes, smelling fresh. And you guys have heard me talk about the body wash. This body wash was a revelation to me. I use it every freaking day. They've also got a 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner, plus a free gift, a 3-pack set of lip balm for guys who are taking care of their lips. So here's what you need to do. Get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code Campea, C-A-M-P-E-A, at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code Campea at manscaped.com. The power of attraction is now in a bottle, thanks to our friends at Manscaped. All right, Rob, I just went in pretty extensive there on that. Let me ask you, what do you think about the things that I said, or the lessons that you take away? Are there other lessons that you think that they should take away from the Book of Boba Fett as well?
Well, first of all, I thought your 5 points were great. And what you're going back to is what makes great writing, what makes great storytelling. Here's my thing about this. They had one job on this show, which was tell us about Boba Fett. I don't care about anything else. And I keep going back. I think back to Chris Claremont's Wolverine miniseries. Wolverine started out part of the X-Men, the Weapon X program. People love Wolverine, became a fan favorite, but no one really knew who he was. So Chris Claremont and Frank Miller went back and did a 4-issue Wolverine miniseries. He went to Japan. You found out about Mariko. They gave him an incredibly interesting backstory dealing with the Hand, and there was ninjas. There was all this stuff that would never have belonged in an X-Men proper. And they defined who Wolverine was, and it resonates to this day. The second Wolverine movie drew heavily from that miniseries. And it was a 4-issue miniseries called Wolverine, and all it dealt with was Wolverine, his backstory, things we didn't know about him. Boba Fett is one of the great Star Wars characters because no one knew anything about him. Celebrating how many lines or lack of lines he had in the whole saga, his awesome armor, his old backstory, all of it. That was the only thing the show had to do. What happened between when Jango Fett was killed in the arena on Geonosis to the end of Return of the Jedi and beyond? This show did everything it could to not tell us who Boba Fett was. And then when it finally did, the whole thing with the Tuskens, while it was totally drawn out, that was a pivotal moment where Boba Fett changed who he was. He found a reason to care about other people. Now, we didn't know that he didn't care about other people because we'd only seen little bits of it. But they showed us him holding his own father's head in his hands. Well, what happened to him then? You could have done a whole thing about the Book of Boba Fett. What did he do when his father was killed? Where did he go? How did he survive? How did he wind up as a bounty hunter just because he wanted to honor his father's legacy? When did he learn to fly a ship? When his father showed him, but we could have dealt with his whole I wanted to see Boba Fett's time in Smallville in high school. I wanted but you know what I mean? I mean, they're in terms of pop culture, sci-fi, fantasy figures, there are countless books and countless stories that give you a template on where they should have gone with this. And instead, not only did you not learn half the things we should have, then they're like, sorry, this show is not that interesting. So let's go to 2 episodes of The Mandalorian, the show you really want to watch, in the middle of this that has nothing to do with Boba Fett at all. And I watch something like this, and it's frustrating because these are all smart people. Jon Favreau's written some great stuff. He's a great filmmaker. He made Iron Man 1, which is a character study that completely defines who Tony Stark is. And Iron Man 1 sets the tone for the rest of the MCU. This should have been the Iron Man 1 of Star Wars. Literally, Boba Fett is he's a Beskar man. But I mean, it was right there. He already did it. And you watch, I'm sorry, I get upset, John, because I look at this and I'm like, this to me is one of the most botched watching Rise of Skywalker and watching this, I ask myself the same question. How could very smart, intelligent people serve up something that is so completely wrong on so many levels? And what's wrong with it is completely obvious. And I don't understand how it gets made. How does it get done? When I can turn around and look at something like, Jack Reacher, which is also a character study, and it was very satisfying, and it had no fan service whatsoever to fall back on.
Yeah, well, Chris,
they had one job, John. Tell me about Boba Fett.
And again, once they cut away to Mando, they did it in such a way that how is this furthering the story of what Boba Fett is? And they just never did it.
This is writing 101.
Anyway, Chris, you heard what I thought are the lessons they needed to take away from this. Do any of those stand out to you? And do you have any other lessons that you think they should add on to that as they move forward?
I think they're excellent lessons. I think these are very, very good. The thing that I kept thinking about, and I know we all loved it, was Luke looked great this time around, right? We liked seeing Luke. But as we've learned from Star Wars, let the past die. Why are we spending all this time, money, technology, energy on recreating Mark Hamill's face? I know we love Mark Hamill. I adore Mark Hamill. But instead of putting so much focus on getting that looking good, let's get our story about Boba Fett to where it needs to be. I'm so glad we had him in there, but I feel like so much of the importance was placed on nostalgia here, and we need to walk that back and focus back on good storytelling. Every point that Rob just brought up, I want to know all those things. I want to know about
his relationship to the Mandalorians. If you're going to bring in other Mandalorians, is Boba Fett a Mandalorian?
Yeah.
He says you don't really believe in that. Like, he disses on the Mandalorian way to Din.
Well, at least Din's specific perception of the Mandalorian.
Yes.
Remember, there's a lot of difference amongst Mandalorians.
But I'm like, I would like to have known, what is Boba Fett's relationship to the Mandalorians, and specifically Mandalore. How do you feel about the fall of Mandalore, Boba?
Yeah.
Was Django a Mandalorian? I don't know. Why? And I should know the answers to this.
I'm going to add one more lesson that they need to take away from this. Don't let Robert Rodriguez direct Star Wars. I'm sorry, you had 3 episodes. And listen, don't get me wrong. I have worked on a Robert Rodriguez film. I think Robert Rodriguez made some really good films, and I will look forward to future Robert Rodriguez films.
I really liked Alita.
I'm not pulling a Last Jedi. We're like, oh, we didn't like Last Jedi, so now therefore we hate everything Rian Johnson does. No. I think Robert Rodriguez is a very talented guy. He's a little hit and miss, but he's made some great stuff, and I will look forward to whatever he does in the future. But don't let him touch Star Wars again. And I wasn't going to say that after the first episode he did, and I wasn't going to say that after the second episode he did. I'll say it after the third. I mean, let him do another Star Wars episode before you let me do one, for sure. But I mean, I think the final episode here is just don't let him do Star Wars. And if as somebody who admires Robert Rodriguez, I don't want Robert Rodriguez for his sake going near Star Wars again. Focus on the stuff you do that you do really well. But I think it became clear. And I think once we get into Obi-Wan and we see Deborah Chow getting back to it, because her episodes of Mandalorian were fantastic, and we see her do the entire series. And again, you just look back and look at, despite the fact that they took us completely away from Boba Fett, well, that wasn't Bryce Dallas Howard's choice. That's the script. Breathe life into it, and man, did she breathe life into it. And I think we're going to see a difference of what happens when a director fundamentally understands how to bring this world to life versus what they did here.
I also think there's another lesson I think that applies to Star Wars itself. Star Wars is too up its own ass. And what I mean by that is the original Star Wars, if you go back and you watch Star Wars A New Hope, it's about a farm boy and a truck driver. Forget that it's taking place in a galaxy far, far away. It is about a farm boy who's stuck on his farm, and it's about a guy running moonshine. And they hook up, and they hook up with a veteran of foreign wars, an old grizzled veteran who says, yo, I need some help with a friend. Let's go off on an adventure. So these two disparate guys who probably would never meet, but they're going to go off on this adventure. Forget that it's set in the Star Wars universe. Tell us a human story. Mm-hmm. And go back and look at the classic, whether you've got to go back and read your Joseph Campbell or whatever. Take the Star Wars out of it and tell me a story about a person, a character. You can put the Star Wars back in because that's all seasoning. But you got to tell a story, dare I say it, a human story about characters that we as human beings can relate to. It's no longer enough to throw in an X-Wing or throw in an N1 starfighter or throw in an astromech droid or a Rancor. Forget all of that. Take all of that away. Just write a story about characters, then put in your Star Wars. Because what they are doing is they have forgotten to tell stories about people.
But they really haven't. Because they just did that in Mandalorian season 1 and season
But
2.
even the Mandalorian suffers from
a little bit
that.
But I always felt like it was laser focused on Din and
Sure.
his journey, his evolution, on starting to understand his past, and they did that. I want to throw in one other thing too. I'm seeing some people in the live chat saying, just leave Star Wars to John Filoni or John Favreau and Dave Filoni. Who do you think just did Book of Boba Fett?
yeah.
That to me is the big surprising thing, because it's not like John Favreau and Dave Filoni don't know Star Wars. They did Mandalorian season 1 and Mandalorian season 2 as the executive producers there. John Favreau wrote this whole thing. Filoni wrote a bit of it. They're the executive producers of it. So guess what? Book of Boba Fett is John Favreau and Dave Filoni. And that's the part to me that is so shocking, because all these lessons I've been talking about, they applied most of them in the Mandalorian 2 seasons. So I don't know. Anyway, guys, question is for you. Whether you liked or didn't like Book of Boba Fett at the end of the day, I think even if you liked it or didn't, you can say there are probably some lessons to take away. What do you guys think are the lessons to take away from Book of Boba Fett that you hope they apply to future Star Wars shows that gets them back to kind of the core essence of what Mandalorian was, or maybe take them to new heights? Whatever you guys are thinking, jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts.